Ork, 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 ork. That's right. The beast Snaggas are here, and today I'm going to be painting up an orc knob. Now, I'm Angela, you're watching Hobby Night, and let's get to this. That's right, I'm going to be painting up some Beast Snagga orcs because they're brand new. I'm super excited about it. I've been looking forward to them coming out ever since they announced them, which I know wasn't that long ago, but let's face it, I love me some green boys. I've painted the Death Guard, we're moving on to orcs now. I'm hyped for it, I get to play with color, and I have a new recipe for my orc flesh. So, without further ado, let's get to painting this orc knob. All right, I'm really excited to be working on this guy, and we've gone ahead and primed him up using Wraithbone, which I think is going to enhance what I'm going to be doing on his flesh especially, which we're going to be working on next. I'm going to be sticking with my classic orc flesh recipe for this guy, and that starts with Plaguebearer's flesh. So I'm going to apply this to all of his skin, basically everywhere that I can get it, not really worrying too much if I'm messy or I get this paint other places, because I'm definitely going to be doing a cleanup stage later on. This is really important to get this color down because I really want to enhance the yellow undertone. Like, I really like that coloring and I want it to shine through. So I'm actually going to do 2 coats of this to really make sure that that yellow hue is there for my next step. And my next step is to apply some BL-Ton green, because one of the things I like to do for my orcs is I like to have this really like apple green coloring, and I found that Plaguebearer's flesh combined with BL-Ton over top of it, because of how transparent that shade is, works really well, and you get this beautiful bright green color tone out of it. So we're gonna apply this everywhere, being pretty liberal with the color to make sure that it falls into those recesses and creates some nice beautiful shadows for us. And then we're going to move on to a final step for the flesh that's brand new. After allowing the BL-Ton shade to thoroughly dry, I'm going to go ahead and pull out Ural Yellow, which is a new step for me for this process. Normally I would stop at my BL-Ton green stage, feeling like it was pretty good and it, enhanced those colors really nicely. But I want to push it a little further. I really actually want that yellow to pop a bit more. So I'm hoping that this dry brush will do the work for me. And it really does. Now, one thing I do want to note while I was doing this is there was occasionally times where I overloaded the brush with too much paint, didn't get enough of it off on my paper towel, and I built up a little bit too much yellow onto especially the face. When this happened, I went ahead and just went back with some BL-Ton green shade and applied it back over top, and that basically reduced the yellow back down, created that nice sort of apple colored green again, and it worked really nicely while still maintaining a little bit more of that yellow highlight so that I didn't have to dry brush it too much more. I love how this turns out, but he's a little messy, so we should probably do a cleanup stage next. Okay, so maybe I was a bit messier than I really intended to be, but that's okay. We're going to do a cleanup stage now using a bit of Wraithbone and take care of that so that we can move on to some additional paint. I just finished painting all of the skin on my lovely green knob, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I've also done my cleanup stage, so he is ready to go. All I need to do now is start getting to his armor, his weapons, and his clothing. I think I'm going to start next with his outfit, specifically like all the leathers and everything, because that's the next most recessed area of the miniature, and I just feel like it's going to be the best to get that done now. And then I'll probably move on to the weapons afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to painting, and I'll check back in with you guys in a bit. Hey guys. If you are enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and let me know about it down in the comments. If you haven't already and you're wanting more content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications. And then if you want even more hobby goodness, make sure to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at hobby_night. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. So let's go ahead and get this guy dressed up. I'm going to start with all of the leathers and everything because I think that's just going to work best for myself. And we're going to begin with a bit of Agros Dune to create a nice khaki pants. You could additionally, if you wanted to, do maybe Space Wolf Gray or Ultramarine Blue if you wanted to do more of a jean coloring, but for this guy, because of his flesh tone and some of the other colors I'm going to be working with, I went with Agros Dune. Once that's done, I'm going to move on to the leather on his back. For that scaly hide, I decided to go with Gryph-hound Orange. I wanted something bright and bold, but still kind of in a natural-ish color tone, and I figured Gryph-hound would work perfectly for that, and it contrasts super brilliantly against the green flesh, which I absolutely adore. And then finally, for the rest of the leather pieces on my boy, I'm gonna go ahead with Snakebite leather. This is just a very nice neutral leather tone that I think complements everything that I've already done. And of course, because my clan is Snakebite, I figured it would be appropriate to use at least a little bit of that paint on him, right? Next, we're going to pull out some Basilicanum Gray and start working on all the mechanical bits on my knob, including his weapons, his armor, and that beautiful claw hand, because I really want to just have these guys be kind of iron looking. I am going to be doing some glazing on some of the metals, but for now we're just going to put the Basilicanum Gray down, and I'm not going to worry too much if it's a bit pale. Between the glazing I'm going to be doing and the shade that I know I'm going to be applying to the model after I'm done with everything, I'm definitely confident that the color is going to deepen the way that I want it to. So I'm really just going to go with the single coat. The only places where I am going to put a second coat are the areas where I'm specifically wanting the color to be darker. That's going to be on the back portion and then a little bit on his shoulder piece, just to give it a little bit more definition and variety in color that I can kind of play around with and push the shades on too. I'm really excited about this. Let's go ahead and get to the glazing. Because I am going Snakebite for my clan, I'm going to be working with some greens and some blues on the armor for the glazing. For the green, we're gonna go with Militarum Green because I just really like the way that it looks. It's a really beautiful olive color tone, and I think it works with sort of the natural color scheme that Snakebites kind of lean towards. And then for the blue, I'm gonna go with not Militarum, that's the green we used. We're gonna go with Ultramarine Blue, which honestly, I don't normally like this paint very much, but I found that putting it over top other contrast colors tends to make it function a little bit more how I expect it to, and so the glazing has actually been fine with it, and I really like the way that this blue turns out. It's a really nice deep blue color tone over top of the gray, and I don't know, it works super well for me. I feel like that muted color, it adds a pop, but it's not so bright that it really takes away from my Orc's flesh or some of the lighter color tones that I've done on the leathers. It really keeps the armor pushed back and muted, and I love that about it. The last bit of glazing that I'm going to do over top the Basilicanum Gray is using Blood Angel's Red on some of the weapons. I really wanted to enhance a little bit on his claw and his gun because, I mean, he's an orc, and I really like putting red on weapons in general, but I definitely feel like orcs need red on their weapons. How else is he gonna shoot that Shuda faster? But one of the other things that I wanted to do with this color is go ahead and dot his eyes, which I was super proud of myself because I didn't mess anything up. I did, however, notice that I got a little bit of orange on his face while I was doing this, but looking at it while I was like, dotting the eyes and going, oh God, I have to clean that up. The more that I looked at it, I was like, it actually kind of looks like he took like 2 fingers and like put dots on his face, like, war paint and everything like that. So I actually think I'm gonna leave it. And the red didn't mess it up. It didn't bleed out or anything like that. So his eyes look brilliant. I'm super happy. Let's go ahead and wrap this guy up soon because we only have a few more colors left. We're down to just the accessories. And so for that glorious jewelry and bling that he's got all over his face, we're gonna pull out a little bit of a Yondan yellow. I'm also going to use this on the cabling that connects to his power claw. I just figured it would pop really nicely, and I almost forgot about it, so I was like, oh gosh, let's just go ahead and throw that color on there. And then we're going to move on to Skeleton Horde, because he does have a few skulls on him, as well as there's like some sort of bony looking spikes that's on a couple of his wrist like bracelets and everything like that, or I guess the bracers that he's got there. And I debated doing them in gray, but ultimately decided that maybe a little bit of extra skeleton horde in a few places would be nice. So we're gonna hit those up as well as a little token that's on his chest. With that done, we just need to wash him and then get him based. And for that wash, I'm going to pull out Agrath's Earthshade. I don't use this color very often. Normally, I am like a hardcore fan of Reikland's Flesh Shade. I use it all the time, but for my orcs, I wanted to go a little darker, a little dirtier, and I also thought it would work well with what I'm going to be doing for the basing. So we're going to apply this color to basically the entire model with the exception of the flesh. Now, if I get some of the Agrath's Earthshade onto the flesh, I'm not going to be super concerned about it. It'll just be a little bit of like dirtiness and debris on him. But I'm going to try to avoid it as much as possible because really I want it to stand out as brightly as possible, and everything else I want to be pushed back. This works really, really well. I'm very pleased with how the shade turns out. So let's go ahead and get him based. Ah, good. We're on to the final step. We're down to the basing, and for this, I decided to go with a ready-made base because I really liked what I had used on my Grots when I was using the Gamer's Grass bases. But instead, for this one, we're not going to go with the temple bases. For these orcs, I decided I'm going to go with something more urban, something that has a little bit of like junk and trash on it, because a lot of the orc terrain and stuff has a lot of debris and junk piles and stuff. So I figured these would work really well. So I'm going to go ahead and take a bit of Zap-A-Gap glue and go ahead and get this guy mounted onto the base. Get it flowing. Yep, nice. Little bit of glue. I'm trying not to go to the edges fully because I know it will overspill a little bit. And then, with very shaky hands, I'm gonna stick him down. And with that, he'll be mounted on, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the final model. Look at my big, hard, throbbing knob. I absolutely love my knob. I was a little intimidated when I first looked at him though, because he's a big boy. I was a little nervous, but I worked the knob over, got real thorough, made sure to get every nook and cranny, and he is done. He's a good big knob, and I love him. And honestly, like, let's really talk about what actually makes this model so cool to me, because I'm very pleased with how he turned out. I love the addition that I've done on the flesh tone. I've worked with orcs before and I've painted their flesh a few times now, and I've gone with the Plaguebearer Flesh Bielton combo, but adding the Uriel Yellow dry brush was fantastic. It pops the yellow out of the Plaguebearer's flesh really well. It really enhances it, and I absolutely am super, super happy to do this, and I'm going to be doing it on a lot more of my boys going forward. And I even have some ideas for some yellow flesh tones for my orcs, which I think this same color tone will be able to work as a dry brush for that, and they'll blend really nicely, so I'm very happy with it. Plus, playing around with this snakebite color scheme and everything has been a huge amount of fun, because I don't actually work with blues very often, and now I'm actually getting to work that into my color scheme a bit. It's going to be on their armor throughout the army, so I'm really excited to go forward and actually play with that color a bit more. And then finally, the thing that I think I am really excited for, because it means way less work for me, but it looks super amazing, is working with the Gamer's Grass bases. I really enjoyed, like I said earlier, working with the temple bases on my Grots from the Dominion box set, and I figured transferring that over to these orcs would be great, except that I wanted to update it a little bit with those urban bases to have all of that debris and everything on there. And I think it's gonna blend really nicely, and it's gonna give me a direction for when I eventually pick up the Kill Team box set and have all that orc terrain. I can kind of work in the styling on these bases into that terrain and then add a splash of color and do like graffiti and like different like paint splatters and stuff like that to really orc it up and everything. But I'm super hyped for it. So now I have a really cool direction for what I'm going to be doing for my boys, and I'm happy with it. I've been Angela. Thank you guys so much for watching. I want to give an extra special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and allowing content like this to be made. Thank you guys so much.
If you guys like this video, make sure to like the video or hit the dislike button if you didn't like it, subscribe for more if you enjoyed it, and hit the bell notification icon for notifications. I got there eventually. Anyways, I've been Angela. You've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. This week I'm going to be painting up a Squighog Boy, but not in the colors you might expect. That's right, you heard correctly. We're not going with the standard greenskins today because I've done that tutorial a number of times, and while I do love it, I want to add a bit more variety into my orc list. So I went to Patreon, put up a poll for my patrons to vote on, and had them pick out some wild colors for me to paint on the Squighog Boy. And what they chose, I'm actually incredibly excited for. So the Squig is going to be a lucky blue, the Orc is going to be orange, and the Goblin that goes with them is going to be yellow. I actually have some really cool ideas for this, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get painting these models. Let's go ahead and get started with our Squig, our little lucky blue Squig. Now I'm going to be going from a dark blue into a mid-tone blue into a light blue, but I'm going to do this gradually so that I can get a smooth transition. And the first color that I'm going to start with is Leviathan Blue Contrast Paint, because this is not only going to function as a base color, but it's also going to function a little bit as a shade, as Contrast likes to do. Once I have this color down and it's thoroughly dried so that it's not going to accidentally smudge or pull any color out of any of those recessed areas, because I've had that happen before with dry brushing, we're going to move on to actually dry brushing the model in some midtones, starting with Macragge Blue. I picked this because I wanted something that still was relatively dark, but still had a little bit of a brighter blue color tone, and I actually think Macragge works really well for that. It also has this slight, like violet undertone, which I really enjoy. Once the Macragge Blue is down and we do a little bit of a heavier dry brush with that, we're going to move on to Thousand Suns Blue, which is one of my all-time favorite blue color tones. I probably talked a little bit about it in my previous video where I painted some Necrons. We're gonna bring it back here because I just really like it. That just like zap of color that's there really speaks to me. So we're gonna apply this next to our Squig, and then after that, we're going to move on to Ahriman Blue, which is the natural complement to Thousand Suns. And again, because I wanted to build this up gradually, I'm going to add this transitional color in before we go to our final highlight color, which is going to be a bit of Skink Blue. Again, we're going to stick with this blue scheme, but this time we're going a little bit more icy. Now, the thing that I want to call out here with the Skink Blue is I don't clean my brush in between doing the Ahriman and the Skink. So the two colors end up mixing together, which does mean that I need to do two passes with this color tone to really get the highlights I'm wanting, especially on the face, as well as some of the like scars that are on the model, because I really want to make those accent and pop out so that they're really vivid and bright. Let's move on now to our orange orc. For this, we're going to do a similar technique to what we did on the Squig, except we're going to be going with an orange color palette. And our starting color is going to be Gryph-hound Orange, which is another contrast paint, and we're going to use it for the exact same reason. It's a little bit darker, it's going to go into those recessed areas really well, and I just love this color. I use it all the time on my Death Guard as their trim to sort of do a rusty color tone, and because it's so pumpkin-y and it is the season for pumpkins to still be around, that is what I decided to name him. Now, once we've got the Gryph-hound Orange on, we're going to go ahead and move on to a highlight color using Troll Slayer Orange. It's a similar color that we used in our Necron video, and I just really like how bright but sort of subdued it still is, because we're going to push this color even further with a final highlight using a little bit of the Master Series paint called Marigold Yellow. Now, this is still a little bit of a yellow tone, like technically, but it leans orange. It's got a little bit more of a yellow-orange color, and I think that works really well here because I didn't want my highlight to be a true yellow, since that's what we're doing on our Goblin. This is a nice complement to it. I think it works incredibly well. And again, I go over with two passes with this color, especially on the face and knuckles of the orc, because I want to accent those the most. Let's work now on that little Gobbo, because he is adorable and he needs to be yellow. So what we're actually going to do is start with a bit of Nazdreg yellow. This is a little bit of a brownish yellow tone, but I think it's going to work beautifully as my shade base color combo for this goblin, and it really, really does. Once it's down and it's had the time to dry, we're gonna start dry brushing. And for that, we're going to first start with Averland Sunset, which is a little bit more of an ochre color tone, which complements with those brown hues that the Nazdreg has beautifully. Then, once we're done with that, we're going to do a lighter dry brush with Uriel Yellow, that really bright lemony yellow color tone that I've been using a lot, and I absolutely adore how this works out. He's very, very yellow, and it's perfect. I love him.
Hello, Imperial Citizen. This is your regular reminder to subscribe to the channel and hit the Emperor's bell for notifications. And if you're feeling particularly devout, you can join my Patreon, where you'll get exclusive unboxings, behind-the-scenes content, and more. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video.
All of my creatures' flesh is looking awesome, and I'm very, very pleased with them. I've done a slight off-camera cleanup stage using Wraithbone to tidy up all the bits that I need to have painted still, and we're going to now move on to the leathers. And we're going to stick with a pretty classic color palette here, starting with Snakebite leather, which is going to go on all of the major big portions of leather on the models. It's going to go on all the big straps of the saddle, it's going to go on the big straps that are on the orc himself, and then it's also going to be used on the pants of the goblin. Because he has those rocket bombs, like gun things, I wanted to make sure he was protected, so I gave him leather breeches so that he would get that extra protection. Safety first, guys. Then we're gonna move on to my newest favorite brown contrast paint, which is Fireslayer Flesh. I used it on my ogre a little while ago, and I absolutely adore the color. I think it complements with Snakebite leather really well, which is why I want to explicitly use it on the patterned seat of the saddle. I'm also going to put it on a couple of the wraps that go on the orc, as well as some of his weapons, just to add a little bit more variety. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and move on to our final brown tone, which is Dark Oath Flesh. This is primarily going to go on the shoe of the orc that he doesn't have for the mechanical leg, and then it's also going to go on any remaining straps that I haven't already painted, just to make, again, have a little bit more variety. The final color we're going to use in this section before we move on is Militarum Green, because that is part of my Snakebite color scheme, and I wanted to go ahead and add that color to my orc's outfit rather than to his armor as much. So we're going to paint his pants up using this, and I also decided to make all of the ties that are holding all the detonation cord on all of the dynamite that's all over all of them, also in this color, to imply that it's straw, so they'll just burn away as they explode and not interrupt anything that goes on with their weapons. Next up, I want to put a bit of Vulpus Pink in their open, screaming maws, because both the orc and the squig have these big open mouths. You can see their tongues and everything, and I really think that's cute, and they need some paint. And I really don't like to use Blood Angels or Flesh Terrors for this, because it always ends up making their mouths look really bloody. So we're going to put Volupus Pink instead inside there. Then we're also going to thin this color down a little bit and apply it to all the scars that both the squig and the orc have as well, including, well, these aren't scars specifically, but we're also going to dot the orc's nipples with this, just because I've really enjoyed doing that. I think it's funny, and we're going to keep up the trend. Now it's everybody's favorite part of the video, where we pull out Basilicanum Gray and apply it to everything that we want to look sort of iron or metal, because that is how I roll. I really, really like using Basilicanum as a non-metallic metal. I think it works really nicely for it. And we're gonna apply this to the jaw, any mechanical limbs that anybody has, all of the weapons, and make sure that anything that looks like it should be metallic gets a coating of this color. We're down to just the details, and we've got a couple of them to go over, so let's run through them really quick. First, we're gonna start with a bit of Blood Angels Red. This is going to go on any of the cords that you might see sticking out of any of their weapons, as well as on the casings of all the bombs that go boom on all of their weapons, because I want to identify them as dangerous. We're also going to put this color on a few places on some of their armor, just to add a little bit of variety and flavor, so that it's not all just one flat gray color tone. Then we're going to move on to Militarum Green, which I'm going to apply to a couple of details on the Squig's armor, because he's already got blue skin, which is part of my Snakebite color scheme, so I wanted to have a little bit of green on him as well. This is a perfect opportunity to do so. Then, in basically kind of reverse, my orc already has a little bit of green on him, so we're going to actually pull out Ultramarine Blue now. I almost forgot what color I used. Ultramarine Blue, and paint that on his armor to, again, pull in that blue color tone for my snake bites. I love how this works with them. I think it pulls just enough in, but that's not all we have to do. We need to pull out Yondon yellow for their eyes. We're going to dot both the Squig and the Orc's eyes with this. We did do the Goblin with red. And then we need to pull out some Black Templar because any of the detonation cords or any of the wires that I haven't already painted, I'm going to do up in black just to have them sort of mute back down and not really be super visible, but still be distinctly different from anything that we painted gray. The final color that we need to do before we move on to a wash is going to be pulling out Skeleton Horde. I don't know what the heck my brain was thinking. We're going to pull out Skeleton Horde and apply that to any of the teeth, nails, or bones that are on the model. And then we can just move on to a wash. And that wash is going to be a bit of Agrath's Earthshade. We're going to apply this to all of the different pieces of the model before we assemble them, just to make sure we get really good coverage. And just, I love what this does to all of the figures. It just sits into the recesses really well. It enhances their skin. All the highlights suddenly pop more, and it just looks beautiful. So let's get them assembled, put them on a base, and take a look at the final model. And here they are. And can I just say, I am so happy. Like, okay, the biggest thing that has me the most pleased about these models is the fact that I actually feel like they fit with the army exceptionally well, despite the fact that they don't actually share that much of the color palette of the rest of the orcs. Everything that I've done with my army so far has been primarily greenskins, like traditional greenskins, or I've done a few like yellow colored orc flesh, kind of actually what I did on my goblin, but I pushed the goblin a little bit further. I love the orange skin on that orc. I don't know if it's just the combination of colors that I did between the Troll Slayer and the Marigold color from Master Series Paint, or if it's just like the new sculpts, or just the fact that I must apparently really like orange, but I just love him. His name is Pumpkin, Max Pumpkin, and the Squig's name is Blue the Blue Squig, and that's blue spelled B-L-O-O. I love these little guys. I haven't named the goblin yet. I've had some names bouncing around, but I haven't actually named them yet, which is why I'm not calling it out here yet. But I really, really, really like these guys. I'm going to absolutely be painting some more orcs with the orange flesh tone. I'm going to definitely be painting more Squigs with some of the other options I think I gave to my patrons, because I do like all of the color schemes. And I think now that I have the proof of concept of this actually works with the army, as long as I keep some consistencies there, like the leather tones, the snakebite color scheme and everything, I think I can make it work, and then I can have this like rainbow of just Squigs, and it's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited. Let me know what you guys thought of this down below. I had an absolute blast with it. I wanted to give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting us and helping me pick this color scheme, because I had so much fun with it, you guys. Thank you so much. We'll be getting a new poll up relatively soon. Just need to figure out what I'm gonna have you guys vote on. But in the meantime, I have been Angela. I will see you guys next week for some more news, as well as another painting tutorial or some other hobby content. And don't forget that this Sunday, there will not be a normal news video. I'm taking it off for the holiday weekend because I'm visiting with my parents, so it's gonna be awesome. Anyways, see you guys later. Bye. It's almost the end of Orktober, and you didn't think I was gonna miss it when I'm building an orc army, did you? Well, I'm not. And as voted on by my patrons, this month I'm gonna be painting Mozrog Skragbad, because I can't say his name correctly, even though he's the HQ for my new list. I'm really excited to paint this guy. GW delayed him. I thought he was gonna be out last month, but he wasn't. So this is a long overdue painting tutorial. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So it's like a week earlier, and I have the bad boy built up. Look at him, he's so cool. Now he's got a few pieces not attached yet, and I'm actually not going to be painting him fully assembled like this. I just kind of want to see how he actually fit together. But what I'm going to do is this piece is going to be remaining separate. So it's going to be his torso. This goes on his back. It's also remaining separate just to make
sure that I can paint the backside of him a lot easier, because otherwise I think it would be like kind of a pain to get to that. And then I'm actually going to be taking off his legs as well from the body of the squig. That way, when I actually get to painting the squig's flesh, which is what I will be working on first, it's gonna go a lot faster. There's gonna be less in my way. And then once we've got that done, then I'll attach the legs, put this little gun piece on as well, and we can finish up the squig in that portion. And then we'll move on to the top. It's gonna go pretty swimmingly, I hope. But let's go ahead and get into it. I've got all of my pieces now primed up using some Wraithbone. I have a little bit of touch up to do under like the belly of the squig and everything where my spray prime didn't quite fully hit, but I'm not super worried about that. And I'm actually gonna do the inside of his mouth a little bit more just to make sure I get some good coverage in there for my contrast paint. But going forward, I'm ready to start on actually painting this guy up. I have a color scheme in mind. We're gonna start with the squig itself, and I'm definitely going for the classic white squig look. I want him to look like a great white shark, and I have a cool idea of how to do that. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, I want Big Champa to look like a great white shark. And to me, that means a lot of blue grays and white blues, which I have a very specific plan in mind. So starting with the base coat, we're gonna start with some Ulthuan gray. I'm gonna use a little bit of a larger brush than I normally would just because the surface area on this model is a lot larger and this is gonna help me get it done faster. But we're gonna put this color on, making sure to cover up all of that warmer Wraithbone color tone beneath. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and apply a wash using Drakenhof Nightshade. The idea behind this wash is not so much to have this be the finished look of it, but just to deepen the recesses and all those wonderful folds that Champa has in his flesh, also wanting to highlight all of his scars and like imperfections because he's battle scarred. He's been through a lot of damage and I want to really emphasize those war wounds. So once that's done and it's had plenty of time to dry, I now really want to start making him look a little bit more like a great white. And in my experience, great whites tend to have a little bit of a darker back, and then their bellies tend to be the lighter color tone. So I'm going to mimic that on Champa, and for that, we're going to use Stormfang. This is a nice darker blue-gray color tone that you might recognize for the Space Wolves, and I really like the effect this has on his backside. We're going to put this primarily on the back, and then wrapping it very subtly onto his sides. Once we're done with that, we're going to move on to Ulthuan Gray one more time, blending this in with the excess paint of Stormfang that's left on my dry brush bristles to make a even paler bluish gray. We're going to apply this on the lower half of the model to sort of blend our colors together, brighten him back up a little bit, and I really love the effect of this. It's going so well. I have one last thing that I want to do to the skin, however, actually two things. I want to darken the fins on the top one more time with Drakenhof Nightshade, that deep blue color tone that we used as the shade earlier, just because they aren't quite as dark as I want them to be, and I think this helps add a little bit of variety. And then the last thing that I need to do on his flesh is use Apothecary White. This is going to be thinned really heavily with contrast medium so that it's really just a light glaze. And this is gonna help blend all of my color tones together. It's gonna add this little bit of a chalky white to the model, which I actually think works perfectly for the great white flesh. And I'm really pleased with how he's turning out so far. But let's not forget about Mozrog himself, because we need to take care of his flesh as well. And some of you may be very familiar with this color scheme because I use it on almost all of my orcs, but for those of you that are new, let me run through my orc flesh recipe real quick with you. First, we're gonna start with a bit of Plague Bearer's flesh, a really lovely warm green color tone. I love putting this on as my base coat and then following it up with a wash using Biel-Tan Green, which creates a wonderful apple green coloring that I absolutely adore, but I also get this really nice deeper blue green in the recesses, showing off all those lovely muscles that he's got. It ends up looking really nice. But I'm gonna push it a little bit further by using a bit of Uriel Yellow as a dry brush to add a little bit of additional highlights. Now, one of the reasons I like this recipe so much is because if I accidentally push the Uriel Yellow a little too far, I can go back with either the Biel-Tan Green or the Plague Bearer's flesh, knock that yellow back, and still have a lovely color tone, which I had to do on his shoulder, and you can't even tell. It's awesome. I absolutely love this. Now, let's keep going. Look at him! He's so good! Okay, so I just finished the cleanup stage on basically tidying up everything where all my dry brushing had got colors where I didn't want them to. I am so happy with how the skin has turned out, both on him and on my orc, because I have both of their flesh tones done, which means that now I can just move on to the metallics and all of the leathers and everything, which I actually don't expect to take me that long. I'm going to, I think, do the metallics first, just to get all of the big portions done on here. I don't know, I haven't decided actually. The leathers might be a better option because I do need to attach the legs still. These are the only things that I haven't actually glued down or reattached to the model, but I think getting maybe the leathers done first so that I can get that done, then attach these, wrap up any leathers, because these obviously need a little bit of leather color tone as well, and then I can probably do the metals, and that actually should be relatively quick. So I'm feeling really good about this, despite how like big of a model he was, and I was kind of worried at the beginning, but he's turning out great. I'm super excited. Let's get painting.
So I decided to work on the leathers next. I thought that was the best plan. And we're gonna keep it relatively simple because there isn't actually that much leather tones on either of these models. We're gonna first start with a bit of snakebite leather on the saddle, the strap that holds the saddle to Big Champa, as well as any of the straps on Mozrog. Then, to add a little bit of variety, I'm gonna pull out my favorite leather tone that contrast paint makes, Dark Oath Flesh, and apply this to the saddlebag as well as to the padding that Mozrog has beneath the claw that is attached to his forearm. Because it's not actually like part of him, it's just attached as like an actual weapon. So he's got a little padding there, which I thought was a really nice, cute little touch. We're gonna have those two color tones there. Then, once those colors are done, I'm actually gonna go ahead and take care of all of the basilicanum gray portions, which is covering anything that is mechanical or the weapons, anything like that. We're going to really not worry too much if this color is put down in a way that is a little bit uneven, for example, because it really doesn't matter. I want actually a little bit of unevenness with it because it actually makes the metal look, I think, a bit more natural. You don't really often see metal tones being like a really smooth finish, especially when they're ramshackled together because they're orcs and they're just grabbing bits and pieces from everywhere. So if it's a little uneven, I'm not super worried. Plus, we're gonna actually be doing a lot of glazing and adding a wash to it, which will help blend everything together and make it look fantastic. So like I said, this is gonna go on his arm. The mechanical one that Mozrog has is going to go on Champa's mechanical leg. It's going to go on the exhaust that Champa has, which I don't quite understand how that works. I'm assuming he might have a mechanical lung as well. Maybe he's like a chain smoker or something. That's how he just like pumps it all out. I have no idea, but I really like that little aspect.
Big Mac makes Squig go faster.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? That's absolutely what's going on. Oh my God, I wonder how fast he runs actually. Ooh, we should test that.
I've attached his legs, as you can probably see. So I've finished up the majority of the leathers on the body of the squig, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. So I wanted to go ahead and get the legs attached because I figured painting them would actually be a little bit easier once they were actually on the model, rather than trying to do it separately and then attaching it and possibly rubbing off my paint. So I'm pretty happy with how the connection went. It actually went together pretty seamlessly, which I was glad for. I did dry fit it prior to like actually even starting painting and everything, but I was still slightly worried because I always get nervous whenever I'm gluing a model together mid-paint session. But what I think I'm actually going to work on next is the mouth, because that is a little bit more of a recessed area. I want to get that done before I do any of the teeth, and I don't want to risk like any further touch-up that needs to happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that now. Then I'll probably finish the pants, and then we'll finish working on all of the like details and everything, all of the metallic pieces that we've already painted up. I'm really happy with how this is coming out. Let's keep going. Hello, Imperial Citizen. This is your regular reminder to subscribe to the channel and hit the Emperor's bell for notifications. And if you're feeling particularly devout, you can join my Patreon, where you'll get exclusive unboxings, behind the scenes content, and more. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video.
It's time to paint up his fleshy gubbins with a little bit of Vulpus pink, because I really wanted the inside of Champa's mouth to have a little bit of a red tone, but not actually explicitly look bloody, which you could absolutely do if you wanted to, but I really didn't want that look. I wanted it to be a little bit more pinky, a little bit more of a natural gum coloring. And it ends up working really well as I glaze it onto his lips a little bit, and I love the sort of purplish tone that that creates because of the blue undercolor of his flesh tone. So it overall works really well. I'm very happy with how his mouth turned out, which I was very worried because it's such a tight little space. I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to get in there super easily. Let's go ahead and work on Mozrog's pants. I went ahead and used a little bit of Basilicam Gray off screen to go ahead and just touch up any of the little embellishments that he has attached to his pants. But I wanted to show you guys me putting down the snakebite leather, which I put on his boots, because that's what I always do for my orcs. And then I wanted to use Agros Dune on his pants, which again is something that I always do on my orcs. This is one of those little touches that I like to do to make the army feel a bit more cohesive, even though I try to add a bit more variety in their flesh tones, in what they do for their shirts, and how they arrange their weapons and how they color their weapons and everything. But this helps unify it very subtly and create basically cohesion, which I really like. We're down to the details, and we've got a couple of colors to go over, so let's go through the list. We're going to start with Black Templar. This is going to be for that thick cable that Champa has attached to his leg, as well as to accent some details on his leg of those metallic bits, just to give a little bit more variety so that the Basilicam Gray doesn't look too homogeneous and everything, because right now it's blending together a little bit too much. Then we're going to move on to some Skeleton Horde, which I'll be thinning down with some contrast medium, because I want this to be very, very pale. This is going to be going primarily on the bones that are on the banner that Mozrog will have on his back later, as well as on the toes of Champa. Then for Champa's teeth, I actually decided to go with Reikland's Flesh Shade, thinned down additionally with some contrast paint, because I just didn't think that the more yellow color tone of Skeleton Horde would work against all of that blue flesh. But the Reikland's having a little bit more of a red tone to it, I think complements with his gums really nicely, and I really like the look of this. I'll probably be doing this a little bit more in the future for an alternate bone color tone. After that, we're going to do a little bit of detailed glazing work on the metallics, starting with Blood Angel's Red. This is going to be first and foremost for Champa's eye, as well as Mozrog's mechanical eye. But I also want to use it as a glaze on the exhaust, on Champa's leg, as well as a couple other key locations on the model, just to add a bit more color and flavor to the sculpt. Then we're going to move on to using a bit of ultramarine blue and militarum green, both colors of which I've chosen for my snake bite color scheme. I've done this on a lot of my orcs, and I wanted to add that color in here because he's the leader of this army. So we're going to focus the blue and green primarily on the banner as well as Mozrog's arm, because he's got a couple of like neat little symbols and stuff on there. There's one that looks like a Squigosaurus, there's a bone, there's something that looks like a tail and everything. So I alternate between these colors to add a little bit more variety in as well. The last thing that we need to do detail-wise is go ahead and pull out some white scars, and we're gonna apply this to that lovely little drool that's hanging down for Champa's teeth, because right now it's blending in a little bit too much with his just normal flesh color, because I haven't really done anything else to it. So we're gonna thin the white scars down with a little bit of water and just glaze that on, just to make it a little bit more opaque white so it stands out. The details are done, and the last thing that I need to do is apply a wash using Agrath's Earthshade. Now, this doesn't quite go exactly how I wanted it to. It ends up being a little bit more splotchy than I really intended, and I think that's just because I didn't really anticipate washing that large of a model all at once. It just didn't quite go how I wanted. So once the Agrath's Earthshade has dried thoroughly, I'm gonna go ahead and glaze on another layer of Apothecary White. This helps blend that splotchiness down and actually make it look more like a dust covering, which I think is going to go great with what I end up doing with the groundwork for my orcs, because, well, I mean, you've seen what they're on base-wise, but for this guy, we have to do something a little bit different.
All right, so he himself is done. In fact, he's even been sprayed so that I can handle him without concerns. And I'm really actually very happy with how he turned out, even though I did have a little bit of concern with some of the wash that I did, but I actually think I cleaned it up pretty well, and I like how gritty he actually turned out. I feel like it's gonna fit really well with what I've been doing on my orcs so far. I'm really pleased. But as you might notice, we haven't done anything with his base. So that's what we're going to work on next. So I'm gonna take him off of this, and then we're gonna think about what to do. Because you see, the rest of my orc army is on these pre-made bases by Gamer's Grass, which are lovely, and I am really sad that I can't use them on Mozrog because they don't actually make it in his size. So what I'm going to do instead is I pulled out a couple of bits that I have just laying around that are rocks. I'm gonna put that onto his main base, and then around that, I'm going to try to recreate what I've done on my orc terrain that you may have seen me build on another video, because this will help blend it into the army, because I've already designed this to blend with these Gamer Grass bases. So if I mimic this, I figure I can make Mozrog look like he blends as well. How am I going to do that? Well, after I get these rocks laid down, and thankfully I know where he's going to be standing so I can kind of position them however I want, I'm then going to lay down some texture paint, specifically Sterling Mud. I'm going to make sure that this is kind of chunky because I want the textures on this paint to really be visible, especially because I'm going to be going back over them with some dry brushes after they're fully dried. Once the paint has had plenty of time to dry, I'm going to start with a dry brush of Hobgrot Hide, which is actually what I used on my base as well, and then I'm going to follow that up with an even lighter dry brush using Tyrant Skull. Once that's done, I'm going to add a bunch of tufts that will blend in with what Gamer's Grass already uses on their urban bases that I've been using so that it all blends together, and I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to look great. So let's go ahead, get to it, and then we can take a look at the final model.
New segment, Angela's first reaction.
Wow! I love how he turned out. Like, the base, I think, is really what ultimately sells it for me, because the paint job, I'm super happy with, but the base looks freaking rad, and base. But I just finished rimming the base, and he's come together. We're gonna look at him here, like full screen and everything here in a second. I'll talk more about it, but I am hyped for this model. I can't wait to actually get him on the table and run him in my list.
Look at him in all of his orky glory. I love how this model turned out. I mean, you might have already seen that from my first reaction, but legitimately, I'm super pleased with how this turned out, especially considering I feel like I kind of borked up my wash a little bit. But I salvaged it. He looks amazing. I'm especially pleased with how the base has come out because it just, I don't know, having a really nice looking base really just makes a model come together, and I think he's gonna blend super well with the rest of the army, despite the fact that I don't have an exactly matching base to the rest of the basically list, because everybody else is going to have those Gamer Grass bases. But he turned out spectacularly, and I can't get over it. I'm really, really pleased. I do kind of want to paint Thraka. I also want to paint more Squigs. Holy cow, do I want to paint so many more Squigs. Thankfully, my list does have a bunch of riders in it who are all on Squigs, so I'm going to have a lot of fun building those up and getting them painted. None of them are going to be a great white like Champa is, but they're going to have some fun colors. I think I'm going to play around with that a little bit more because I really enjoyed this. Let me know what you guys thought down below. I wanted to give an extra special thank you to my patrons for voting on Mozrog to be painted this month. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it and everything. I have been Angela. You've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
So wait, you're saying you paint your Warhammer armies with the same color uniforms?
Yes, I know, it's mind-blowing.
That is such a radical concept in this hobby.
I mean, with orcs and some of the ones where you can experiment more, maybe it is.
This week I was sent some glorious orc booty from Cromlech to paint for you as part of their Orktober sale. Let's go ahead and get to it. That's right, mateys. We're gonna be painting up some orcs, but I think keeping this gimmick up for the entire time might be a little tiresome on my throat. So, Chaos Cultist, could you give me my glasses, please, and like take that?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I would hate for you to have to keep like some ridiculous gravelly voice going this entire video. That would be really strained and painful on your throat. So good on you for not doing that.
I learned from the best. I've seen that. Now, we have an orc to paint up today, but not just any orc. We're going to be painting up an Orc Corsair Captain, which essentially is a Flash Gitz in the 40k world, but I do like the emphasis on the pirate theme from Cromlech. So we're gonna go a little pirate heavy with this paint job. I really like these models. If you are an orc fan and you've not checked out their bits or their models, I would highly encourage it, and they do have a great Orktober sale going on right now. So maybe head over to their website. I left a link in the video description and check them out. But we have a model to paint, so let's go ahead and get to the hobby desk and get working. After getting the model primed up in white, I was looking at him and I realized I might need to approach this a bit different than I do my normal projects. That big gun that he's lugging around is blocking a lot of his legs, feet, and some of his chest, so I figured I'm going to start with those areas first and then move on to how I normally approach my projects. That being said, let's go ahead and start with his pants. My orcs appreciate a comfy pair of jeans, and that's exactly what we're going to give our orcs today, using Stormfiend, my new favorite go-to color for jeans. Just reminds me of an old pair that I had, and I really loved them. After that, I'm going to take care of the loincloth that's between his legs. I want to use this as a way to bring in some of my original snakebite color scheme, so I'm going with Agros Dune, which I used a lot on my previous models. I also decided to put this on the cords that are holding his pants together, just to add a little bit more emphasis there. Once we're done with that, we're gonna take care of that looted Blood Angel's librarian jacket that he's wearing, because he's a big boy. There's no way that this came off of a human, so it must have come off a Space Marine, and I think it's going to be coming off of a Blood Angel's captain, or librarian rather. My orc is a captain. Now, this is going to have a two-tone color to it, and the underside is going to be using Balls Red, a lighter red tone, whereas the front is gonna be a darker red, and we'll get to that later. Once we're done with the underside of the coat, we're gonna move on to a dark brown for his boots and his belt. I'm using Gargak Sewer. I've really grown fond of this as an alternative leather color tone, but you can use whatever brown that you want. And then finally, we're going to pull out Basilicanum Gray for the underside of his shoe, as well as his peg leg.
It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. Now that I have more of the hard to reach areas taken care of, I'm going to attach him to a base and attach that to a handle so that I can go ahead and get this guy painted up. We're gonna start next on his glorious green orc flesh. And for this, I'm going to my new favorite orc recipe for this, Mantis Warrior Green, a single contrast color when previously my orc recipe was 4 different contrast colors. Actually, I think it was a shade and contrast color, but regardless, it took 4 paints and now I can do it in 2 single thin coats, and I absolutely love the effect every time. Once his flesh is painted fully and dried, we're gonna move on to that amazing Blood Angel's librarian jacket that he's looted. Because as I mentioned, the front side is going to be a little bit of a deeper red. And for that, I'm going to go with exactly what I do on my actual Blood Angel Space Marine Force and use Flesh Tearers Red. I still love this red tone, especially the natural way the shadow color tone ends up pooling, especially on jackets and cloth materials. It just looks so amazing, and I think it really makes this Orc Captain's coat stand out stunningly. After that, there's one other final recessed area that I want to take care of, and that is his open maw. For this, I'm going to be pulling out Sigvald Burgundy, which is my go-to for the insides of mouths or fleshy wounds. We're going to apply this to that tongue that's sticking out between all those glorious teeth. I'm feeling really good about where my orc is at, but we need to work on some of the details, and I'm gonna start with the leather accessories like his backpack. For this, I'm gonna be pulling back out Agros Dune. I'm gonna apply this to the entirety of the backpack, including the straps. I'm also going to apply it to the bracer that's on his wrist. Again, this is a color that I've used on my snake bites before, and I really wanted to use it here to make it feel like this orc belongs to that army. We're going to do some other work to help him feel like he belongs to the army as well, but this is a good start. Once we're done with that, we're going to move on to a little bit of Gargak Sewer one more time for some of the binding on both the bracer and his backpack, just to add a bit more variety there and help it be a little less uniform. Now, you may have noticed I have been avoiding the captain's hat that is on his head. It is leather. It could have been Agros Dune, but I wanted to do something unique and a little bit different for it, and so I pulled out my other favorite flesh tone, and that's Dark Oath Flesh. I just love the sort of slight red tone that this has to it, and considering I feel like GW likes to make it so that the real pirates of the world are the dwarves sometimes, I like to imagine that this orc has stolen this from a space dwarf and he's just put it on his head, and that's why it's a little small. Now, I love the way that this ends up working, and I do need 2 layers of the Dark Oath Flesh to really make it sing, but once it has that on there, it's looking amazing. From there, I want to paint up all those glorious teeth that are both in his mouth, on his person, and that amazing treasure map that he has latched to his belt at his side. For this, we're going to be using Mortarian Grime, an alternative that I really love for bone material. It still has a little bit of that beigey bone coloring, but it also has a slight hint of green, which I think is perfect for a seafaring orc. I just imagine that it's like
a little bit of sea mist, sea salt that's gathered and tinted everything slightly green. It just works perfectly for me. From there, the last thing that we need to do is take care of some of the details on the jacket and some of the other looted items. And for that, I'm going to be using a bit of Iron Jaws Yellow. This is my now go-to for a start of a non-metallic gold. We're gonna apply this to everything and then put a little hint of Mortarion Grime right back over top to make it settle and really look a little bit more gold-like. There's not much left to take care of on my orc except for his weapons and the banner. And for that, we're going to start by base coating all of the metallics using Basilicanum Gray. This is my go-to for a non-metallic look using contrast paint, and I really like the effect. I am going to spend a little bit of time making sure to darken some panels versus others to add a little bit more variety to the layers that actually make up his gun and the banners. But once they're fully dry, we're gonna go ahead and start glazing on some additional color so we can play around with more of what I love to, which is just all of the colors of the rainbow. This is also where we can bring in a little bit more of my snakebite color scheme specifically. But first, we need to pull out Blood Angel's Red and apply this to the gun because I want both the tank and the exhaust vent that is around the gun to be painted this color, indicating that that's where the fuel is and that one of it might be hot. Now, once we have the red on there, we're gonna move on to those snakebite colors like I was talking about. And the first one we're going to use is Militarum Green. This is going to be applied to a lot of the orky icons on both the banner and his gun. Once we're done with that, I'm going to move on to Ultramarines Blue, which is another of my snakebite colors, and apply that to the rest of the orky icons. Now, I didn't use any of the blue on the gun because I didn't really find a good space for it, so I decided to put a little trim of blue on his hook hand, which I think just works perfectly. This helps balance that color a little bit more around the model, and I just love the effect. The last thing that we need to do is pull back out Iron Jaws Yellow and apply this to the cords that I left unpainted on the gun. I really wanted all of the yellow pieces to be representative of the pieces that he's stolen and looted from various Imperial factions, and so I really wanted to have bits of that mixed into his gun because it's supposed to be this cool amalgamation of things. Now, I love the way this orc is looking. We need to get him based up, and then we'll be ready to show off the final model. And here he is. Yar! My captain, my corsair. I absolutely love him. I have to applaud Cromlech on just the level of detail they put into their orc models, as well as just how fun they are to paint. I always love painting orcs, it seems. It doesn't matter who they come from, but these ones in particular have been a blast. There's such a huge amount of detail on them, and I just really love their faces and some of the clothing elements. They're just really, really cool to me. I think this guy turned out amazing, and I think he's going to fit perfectly in with my orc army, even though originally I was going for a little bit more of a feral beast Snagga vibe, but really, honestly, it doesn't matter. I love this pirate theme. And I have a variety of other models from Cromlech to also be painting up, which you'll probably be seeing on the channel a little bit later this month as we continue to celebrate Orktober. Now, if you are an orc fan, as I said, Cromlech has a variety of both bits and models for you to take advantage of, so I would highly encourage you to head over to their website and check out what they currently have available. They do have a really big Orktober sale happening right now, so please do feel free to check it out. Before I head out, I want to give a huge thank you to Cromlech for sending me the model today to paint, as well as to my patrons for making it so content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we just wouldn't be doing this, so thank you very, very much. I've been Angela, and I hope you have a wonderful hobby night.
Entry 624. Imperial Scouts have identified a prime example of a deployed and equipped Ork Commando. The subject has been spotted utilizing advanced infiltration tactics, and so far Imperial scholars and strategy adepts have failed to decipher the intricacies of these techniques. Once the subject's acute senses catches wind of her prey, it is all but over.
We've got a bonus hobby video for you this month, brought to you by my patrons, because originally they had voted, you see, for me to paint up Mozrog, because I thought he was going to be coming out this month. GW has disappointed me, and he has not shown up. However, I put another poll up on my Patreon, and they voted, and instead, I'm going to be painting 2 models for you this week. We're going to be painting not only a Commando, which is really fun. He was super awesome to paint, so I'm really looking forward to this. And we're also going to be painting up an explosive little bomb squig. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get them primed and start painting. As per usual, we need to start by getting both of our models primed up using a bit of Wraithbone. Now you can use whatever light-toned primer that you want, but I tend to gravitate towards Wraithbone because, one, I'm going to be using a lot of warm color tones this time around, and it just works really well with contrast paint, which I will be using a lot of today. I want to work on my explosive little friend first because the bomb squig is super cute, and I'm gonna go with a classic design here. We're going to go with a red flesh tone on our bomb squig, and to start that, we're going to need a little bit of Wild Rider's red. I'm gonna put this down in 2 thin coats, and we're going to then let it dry thoroughly. After that, I want to go with a wash almost of Blood Angel's red contrast paint. So I'm gonna use 2 dollops of contrast medium mixed in with the paint to create a nice little wash to put over top of my squig to give him a lovely cherry red color tone, which is perfect because he's a little cherry bomb, and I think this is gonna work great. But honestly, the Blood Angels is looking a little bit dark. I want to pop some of those ridges on him, really make his face emphasize. So for that, we're going to apply 2 dry brushes real quick. The first one is going to be sort of a transitional dry brush that's going to help build up to the lighter tone we're working with, and that is going to be Troll Slayer Orange. This works really well. I almost stopped here because I really like the sort of subtle look, but that face, that little bomb squig face, screams for a little bit more attention. So for that, I'm going to pull out a little bit of Uriel Yellow. This is a super vibrant yellow color tone that I absolutely love, and it works perfectly with the combination of the Wild Rider's red, the Blood Angel's red, and then my orange. I'm really digging the way his flesh tone looks. He's a genuine cherry. Now let's get to some of those accessories he's running around with. Now that my squig is a proper bomb red, we can move on to some of the details. And we're gonna start with a little bit of basilicanum gray on all of the metal bits on the model. This includes the antenna that's going to set him off when he explodes in the enemy lines later, as well as the armor plate on his belly and any of the little accessories that might have some metal bits on them. I'm also going to use this color tone on the Dynamite's, oh my gosh, I've forgotten what those things are called. Those strings that go into them to make them explode. Fuse, that's what they're called. It's called a fuse. We're going to paint the fuse up in a little bit of basilicanum gray as well, and then after that, we're going to focus on the bombs in his hungry little mouth, because I want to make them look like they're from the box that we attached to my orc terrain earlier that was stolen from the Imperial Guard. So I'm going to use a little bit of Militarum green on them to really make them seem like they came from that set. Then for the Dynamite, we're going to pull back out Blood Angel's red and just put this directly onto the Dynamite to make it super vibrant, very bold, and it works perfectly. There's not much left to do on the bomb squig himself, except for a couple of details, so let's go ahead and take care of those now. Starting with some skeleton horde for those sharp little teeth and those adorable little toe claws, because they are just so gosh darn cute. I love this little figure so much. Once those are done, we're gonna move on to a little bit of snakebite leather, because he's running with some snakebite. We should have that color tone on him, and this works perfectly for all those straps carrying all the bombs and mines and all of that on him. Then, once that's taken care of, we're gonna move on to a little bit of a Yondan yellow, which I'm going to be using for his glowing little eyes. And I actually really like this because it complements and ties into the Uriel yellow that I put on his flesh tone. I really dig the vibe. Plus, I decided to put this color tone on the cord that is attaching to the detonator that I assume is going to make him explode once the commando hits the button. Now, I was looking at the teeth,
And they actually ended up a little bit darker than I originally intended, so I'm gonna pull back out some Wraithbone and quickly edge highlight them just to make them stand out a bit more and brighten them up a little bit.
Oh, hey, didn't see you guys there. Well, while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video.
For now, the bomb squig is done, so it's time to move on to the commando, and we're gonna start with his flesh just in the same way that we did the squig, except of course we're going to be going with something a little bit more orky. In fact, we're gonna go with my classic orc flesh color palette, which begins with a bit of Plaguebearer's flesh. This is a deep, rich yellow-green color tone that works as a foundation color for the shade that I'm going to be applying next, which is Bielton Green. This slightly cooler green color tone over top the Plaguebearer's flesh that we just put down creates a beautiful apple green color tone that I absolutely love, and I put it on as many of my orcs as I possibly can, and we're going to be doing it here, obviously. But it's not the only thing we're gonna do. We're gonna push this flesh tone a little bit further by pulling back out some Uriel Yellow one more time. This is not only going to tie the orc into my squig, but it also will brighten up some of that flesh tone on him by doing a light dry brush using this yellow tone over just the most raised edges. This really emphasized some of the scars that he has on his face, and I absolutely love the way he's turning out so far. I mean, just look at him. His flesh tone is looking amazing, but we should probably take care of some of the other, articles of clothing and such that's on him to get him fully finished up and everything. So we're gonna move on now to the leathers, and I'm gonna start with a bit of Agros Dune on his pants, as well as I'm going to apply this color a little bit to a couple of the straps on his jacket. This is just gonna give me a little bit of a different color tone because I'm actually gonna be using several different leathers. Once the Agros Dune is done, we're then going to move on to Dark Oath Flesh, which is by far one of my favorite contrast brown color tones. I use it as often as I can. It has a very slight reddish hue once you layer it a couple times, which is exactly what I do here on his backpack, because I really want that color tone in there. And I really just want this backpack to be the only thing painted in this to make it stand out. Once that's done, we're then going to move on to all the straps that are on him. And much like we did with the squig, I'm actually going to pull back out Snakebite Leather. This is their, it's his clan, so he should probably have that color tone on him. Plus, it is super neutral, and the slight orange hue it takes next to the orc flesh, I absolutely love. So we're definitely going to be applying this to all the straps and accessories, filling in any of the last leather bits that we need to take care of.
Ambush! How's it going?
It's going well, actually. I'm doing a in-between cleanup stage right now on the commando. I just wrapped up doing the majority of the leathers, but I need to clean up his jacket a little bit before I can finish up the cloth. So I'm doing that right now. Then we'll finish that up and basically move on to the metallics. I'm not gonna be using metallics. We're gonna be using contrast paint, but it's the metal pieces. And then it's just details after that. So I'm really happy with it. I love how his skin turned out. I'm really actually happy with how the leathers have shown up. You guys can actually take a quick peek there. So I'm really, really pleased with how that's looking. But yeah, I'm excited. Let's get back to cleaning this up and finish this model.
Now that I'm done with all the neutral leather tones, it's time to move on to playing with some color, which is always my favorite thing to do in these videos. But we're not going to be just playing with any color today. I'm going to go with some specific ones because I want it to tie in to what I've been doing on the rest of my orc army. Starting with some Militarum Green. I'm gonna put this on his vest because I assume that he was like, I'm a commando, I should be sneaky. This will clearly camouflage me with my flesh tone. It's gonna work perfectly. Nothing is gonna go wrong here. And then for his hat, because I wanted it to look denim, I decided to go with ultramarine blue, which I've been using on my orcs already. This allowed me to add this color in very subtly because I really didn't want to have too much bright color tones on him because he is supposed to be sneaky. He is a commando after all, and I wanted to keep on theme a little bit with that. But I still wanted a splash of my snakebite color tones, and this really allowed me to do it. Next, it's time to take care of all of the metal that he has on him, both his claw, his gun, any accessories that he's got on him, his belt.
All of that is going to be coated in a bit of basilicanum gray. And to help differentiate it and give a little bit of color variety, I'm going to be layering this a couple of times on various sections on both the gun and the claw, just to build up some extra color and change some variation, or basically change the color tone of the gray, which is one of the reasons I actually really like contrast paint and actually end up using it so much. Because it's so transparent, you can actually layer and get different depths out of your colors by just layering on the same color tone, rather than having to constantly switch between pots or mixing paints, which just makes the whole thing faster for me, which is why I absolutely love it. The gray is dry and looking great, except for that little bit on the back of the claw that I missed. Don't worry, we'll be taking care of that later. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to some detail work, because there's a lot of details on this guy that we need to pop out. And we're gonna start with a little bit of black Templar. This is going to go on any of the wires that have a sort of rubber coating over them, just to keep them a little bit darker. I'm also going to put it on a couple of the metal bits on, say, the antenna and everything for his radio, just to make it stand out a little bit differently, so it's not all just one same color tone. Then once that's done, we're going to go ahead and move on to some Blood Angels Red. We're coming back to it one more time because we need to put it on a couple of his weapons, as well as one of the cords attaching to his power claw. I just thought it would be a nice pop of extra color that wouldn't seem too out there for like being on him. And it works super well. I absolutely love putting red on my weapons. It always just makes them really cool looking to me. But we're gonna do actually a little bit more to them here in a bit. We'll get to that in a second. However, first, we need to go in and rapid fire through a couple of small colors that aren't going in too many places, but are very, very important. Starting with Orc Flesh, which I'm gonna be putting on the actual screen that is on his radio to show the radar and everything. I wanted something bright and bold and very different from the greens that I'd already used, and Orc Flesh honestly works really well for this. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to a bit of a Yondan Yellow, which I'm going to be putting on the remaining of the cords that aren't unpainted, or that are unpainted rather, and then also his glorious nose ring, because that needs a little bit of bling there. And then finally, we're going to pull out some skeleton horde to put onto his teeth, much like we did the squig. And this time I don't go too dark, so I don't really have to go back and do any edge highlighting. I'm really happy with the way that it's turned out. However, as I was looking at him and I was finishing him up, before I move on to the wash, I decided I wanted to go back and pull out one more time Militarum Green and Ultramarines Blue to help emphasize some of the decals on his weapon. I figured these symbols would be nice to pop out. I did that a little bit on my orc terrain as well by using my snakebite colors in there, and it works perfectly. It also stands out really, really nicely against the red that I put down, so I'm very pleased with the results. Let's go ahead and get him washed now. My commando and the squig are basically finished. The last thing that I need to do is apply a Agras Earthshade wash to both of them. Now for the squig, I went ahead and just did this all over the entire thing, not really worrying about the flesh tone or anything. With the commando, at first, I went ahead and avoided his flesh because that's what I've done in the past. However, I decided to be brave and try putting Agras Earthshade over top his flesh tone to see if I could get it to settle into the recesses and give him a little bit of a grungier look. And it works perfectly. I don't know why I haven't done this before. I think it was just that, honestly, I was worried that the flesh tone was going to lose some of its vibrancy and saturation, but it doesn't. Shades don't really work that way. They don't actually tint things that heavily. So I'm gonna be doing this going forward on all of my orcs, and honestly, I'll probably go back and reapply this wash to the ones that I didn't do it to, just to help unify them. Once the wash is on there, however, the last thing that I need to do is get this boy attached to his base, along with the squig also to his, and then maybe do a little bit of tufting just to hide the seam lines. And I am using the Gamer's Grass pre-made bases like I have been, as well as some of their just standalone grasses to sort of fill in some of the extra just variety on them. And after that, we just need to rim the base using a little bit of black paint, and we can look at the final models.
Another ambush! What are you up to, Angela?
Well, as you can see, I am touching up the squig. I've got him attached to his base. I've glued him down using just, normal Zap-A-Gap. And I've gone ahead and retouched up the section that he's standing on, that's part of his miniature, to darken it a little bit and help it blend into the ground a bit more. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually adding in a few more of these little short tufts that I've got from Gamer's Grass, because it kind of blends with what he's already got going on here, and it's gonna help me hide the seam on the actual model itself, which is going to help just make it look a little bit nicer, make it look a little bit more natural with the base itself. And I've done this actually on the Commando as well. I've got him and I've already attached him and everything and added in some extra tufts, but as you can see, I sort of just used this long piece of grass to basically blend it in. And that's actually one of the reasons I love these wild grasses from Gamer's Grass so much. They have a bunch of unique shapes. Sometimes they have really long strips. Sometimes they have like weird rounded patterns and everything. And these rounded edges make it so that when you're actually laying in and blending in your models to the bases, it actually provides a little bit more of a seamless transition. And I super love it. It's one of the reasons I keep going back to them over, say, something like Army Painter, which only really has those like round tufts, which work fine for some things, but like the shapes are really selling me on this product. I just absolutely love it. And I'm super, super pleased with how these guys are turning out. So let me go ahead and finish this up, and then we're gonna look at the final models.
Orc, 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 bomb squig. They are done, and I love them. They're honestly really, really cool. I absolutely adore how they look on their bases. I continue to be super pleased with the Gamer Grass ready-made bases, and the colors turned out exactly how I wanted them. The Commando is still a little bit muted. He's a little sneaky still feeling, but he definitely goes with the rest of the army. And they are looking so good together. I can't wait for Mozrog to actually release in October because I will be painting him up next month. The Patreon voted on him. I still want to do it. I was actually really disappointed that I couldn't this month, but the Commando and Bomb Squig were a great alternative. I had a blast painting them, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching me paint them up and hopefully get some inspiration from it. Now, if you did, make sure to tell me about it in the comments. Make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you want to see more content like this. We'll have another hobby video later this week for you on Friday, and then we'll have something, of course, on Sunday, either news or possibly a video game video. I haven't decided quite yet, but we'll see how that's going. Now, I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Man, I love orc knobs. I love how big they are. I love that the new orc knobs are even bigger and really fun to play with. What? Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. Today, I'm going to be trying the Contrast 2.0 paint line on my orc Mega Knob. Let's get to it. You guys, I am so hyped for today's video because today I finally get to try out some of the colors I have been very interested in from the new Contrast paint lineup. And we're going to be trying them out on a Mega Knob. Not just any one though. We're going to be trying it on the Warhammer Plus commemorative miniature, Bazdrog Neck Choppa. And frankly, we're not going to be following the box art 100% here because I want to experiment with as many of the bright color tones in this new lineup as I can while still trying out some of the more muted color tones as well, so don't worry about that. So we're going to be changing things up just a smidge. After getting our orc primed up in a bit of that new White Scars primer, we're going to get to painting, so let's go ahead and do it. As I mentioned, we're going to be using the new White Scars primer on this mini, and I just have to say, I really like it. It's very similar to how Wraithbone and Grayseer go down, having a little bit more of a silky finish to it, and I think it's going to work really well with these new colors, which we should jump right into using. And we're gonna start by working on my orc's flesh. Now, I'm looking for a way to minimize the number of paints I need to get this particular flesh tone down. You see, on my orcs currently, what I do is I use Plaguebearer's flesh, and then I let that dry, and then I put a BL Ton green shade over top of it. And if I can get one paint that will do that and accomplish that sort of candy apple green color tone that I want, then I'm going to be very, very pleased. And guess what? This new lineup has just that color. It is Mantis Warrior Green, and I love this new color tone. It does exactly what I want, minimizing the number of paints that I need to use, which means I'm going to get my orc army done so much faster. All right, I am already immediately pleased with these new contrast paints, and I've used a single color. And if they all end up functioning kind of like this color, Mantis Warriors Green, which is what I use for my Orc's flesh, then I am going to be a very, very happy girl, because if you look at my Orc, which I've painted, the flesh looks lovely. It's exactly what I was wanting. It's a sort of yellow, warm green color tone, and it's perfect. And if you compare it to this other Orc that I have painted on the channel, and if I haven't actually painted this particular one on the channel, I've definitely demonstrated this Orc flesh. And what this is for this guy is it's Plague Bearer's flesh with a Bielton shade over top of it to give it more of a candy green color, or candy apple color rather. And then it's got a Aggrass Earth shade wash over top of that. And minus the slight brown tone on this Orc that I've just started painting, I've pretty much nailed that color already, which means that this new color is going to save me so much more time when it comes to painting my Orc army, which has me super hyped because I've been wanting to finish my Beast Snagga army, and I'm really excited for this. I can't wait to jump into some more colors. I need to do a little bit of cleanup here first, but let's get back to it. Okay, I have spent a lot of time squealing about the Orc flesh, but we need to refocus because there's a lot of this model left still to paint, and we're going to move on next to some of the more recessed details on the model, starting with Black Legion, which I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail here in a bit when I get to the armor, but I wanna say that I do really like it. It is much, much darker than Black Templar. From there, we're going to move on to Sigvald Burgundy, which is one of the new red tones that I was really eager to try because as much as I love Vulpes Pink, it's not my favorite. This has genuinely replaced Vulpes Pink for me, especially as a color for the interior of a mouth. I use it on my Orc's mouth here and his loincloth, and it just, it sings. It's such a great color. It's a deep pink red, and I love it. From there, we need to move on to Stormfiend, which I'm going to be putting on his pants. Now, I wanted to use at least one of the blue contrast colors on this model. I have plans to use a lot more of them on a future project, but I did want to at least snag one of them in, and I went with a more blue-green color tone Stormfiend, and I'm putting this on his pants just to kind of have it be a nice little pop of blue down there, but not be super evident. And I really actually very like it. I'm looking forward to trying more of those colors out. After that, we're going to move into some dingier, darker colors, starting with a brown tone who I think has a terrible name called Gargak Sewer. Not because Gargak himself has a bad name, but I feel like that's a really impolite way to just describe a sewer. And this is not a brown tone that I would use to describe a sewer. I think it's actually quite lovely, and I'm using it on the handle of his axe and some of the leather details on his pants because I really want it to stand out, but I don't want to use too much of this color tone. It just is a nice addition to the existing browns that the contrast line already has, right there in between Wildwood and Snakebite Leather. So if you have those colors, you want something in between, go for it. Then the last color that we need to do for these details is my newest favorite grimy color tone, and it is Rattling Grime. Okay, it is fantastic. I don't know yet if it's replacing Basilicanum Gray for me, but it might because I just think it's lovely. I am putting this on all of his wraps, any of the other leather details on the model because I wanted something that was a little bit more muted, a little gray, and has a little tinge of brown to it, and this is perfect. I really love this color. We're gonna come back to it in a bit where I thin it down because I think it has a lot of versatility.
I still think Basilicanum Gray, no.
Yes, Basilicanum Gray is the old one.
Yes, I think Basilicanum Gray is still a better metal and
That's fair.
Inorganic gray.
That's fair.
This new Blight is better for organic grays.
I honestly think I would agree with that.
I've remembered to plug my microphone in this time. Let's start on the armor. We're gonna start with the accent color, and that is going to be Leviathan Purple. I am thrilled with this particular purple color tone. It's not quite as transparent as some of the other colors. However, it is a deep royal purple color.
way better than I think what Shyish purple can achieve, and a much just truer purple than anything Magos purple can get. And it's just perfect and I love it. Okay, I am working on the armor and I've just wrapped up the purple, and I have to say I absolutely love Leviathan purple. It is precisely what I have been wanting out of a purple color tone. It's deep, it's rich. I will admit, if you want it to have a little bit more of a natural highlight, I do think you need to thin it a bit more with water and or contrast medium, because it is one of the colors that is a bit more flat and I think designed to be a more base coat than a more transparent color. That being said though, I think it's fantastic. Next, I need to move on to the yellow of the armor, and frankly, I'm a little terrified, but I've done a little bit of testing on this particular model here, and there's not a major difference between the two yellows that I tested.
So which one's where?
So this one here on the arm
entire
entire arm is Imperial Fist yellow.
So the glove and the bicep.
Correct. Yes, and the bicep is where I thinned it a bit more.
Oh, okay.
And then the glove is where I did not thin it as much. And so again, this one, much like the purple, seems like it's more meant for a base coat. This yellow though on the chest is Iron Jaws yellow, which is what I think I'm going to be using today on my orc. I think it's a little bit more transparent. I think it just gets a little bit more of that natural highlight, shadow, and base color tone, where the Imperial Fist, like I said, is a bit more flat. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm nervous, but we can do this. All right, you heard the woman. We're going with Iron Jaws yellow. I think this was the correct choice. I really love how this goes down, and I am very happy to say that the new yellows continue to please, and I think they're a great addition to what we already have from Contrast 1.0 with Iyanden and Nazdreg, but I think these are better. I do think Iyanden and Nazdreg yellow both have their places still, but Iyanden tends to have a little bit too much orange and can definitely go cheddar very, very quickly. And Nazdreg on the other end scale has a little bit too much brown in it sometimes. This Iron Jaws color is a truer yellow. It's a little bit mustard if I would give it like a descriptive color tone, but I think that works really well, and I'm gonna apply a wash to it later that I think is going to enhance it even more. Now, I am going to be using a little bit of Imperial Fist yellow on this particular model because I do want to try to differentiate the Stormcast Eternal trophies that my orc has collected onto his armor. So for the helmets that you see him either holding in his hand or have attached to the armor, we're going to be applying that flatter yellow to that. That armor is looking sweet, but we have some details to work on next and a lot of weapons. So for the weapons, we're gonna pull back out Black Legion. And this is one of those colors, much like the purple and the Imperial Fist yellow. It's a little bit flatter. However, I did find if you watered it down really heavily, you could actually get a really nice pale gray. And that's what I'm doing on the axe to kind of give myself a bit of a differentiation between the bladed edge and the flatter area. I went with something just dark because I wanted to really have my orc's armor stand out. And I think this was a good choice because I do actually like the slate effect that I'm getting on the axe head. We're gonna apply this also to his knife as well as a couple other items on the orc, but overall I'm really liking this new black, and it's definitely my new go-to anytime I need to base coat black for any metallic color tones going forward. After that, we need to move on to the bones and some of the remaining organic bits on the orc. And for that, we're going to start going into some of the more muted color tones as well, and some of the shades, starting with Gut Ripper Flesh. This is one of the other greens that I decided to use, and I almost went with this for my orc's flesh. However, it's really, really pale, almost kind of minty in color tone, and I thought it would work perfect for the skulls of the orcs that are also adorning his armor, because I like to make them have a little bit more of a Xeno vibe, and there aren't really that many good bone colors in this particular 2.0 set of contrast paints. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. From a pale, pale green, we're going to go into a bright, screaming red with ball red. This is one of the other colors that I definitely want to test out in this first batch of paints, and I am so thrilled with it. I will admit, while it was still wet and I was putting the color down looking at it, it looked hot pink to me, and I was mildly concerned, but then it dried into this really just vibrant red tone, and I think it's great. I don't know if it's what I'm going to switch over my hobby nights to in their color scheme. However, I'm definitely going to be experimenting with it on my Space Marines. I just think it's going to look great as an armor-based color. After that, we need to come back in and actually take care of the rest of the bones. And for that, I'm going to be using Mortarion Grime. There are 2 Grimes on this model, 2 Grimes in this set, and I love both of them. Mortarion Grime is the one shade of the new collection that I'm actually using. It has a kind of bone color if it got really, really whitewashed and paled and bleached, and I think it's perfect for the just honestly an accent color to everything else I've got going on. I've got a lot of really bold, vivid colors and a lot of darker color tones, so this is my pale splash of color. I just think this is perfect. He's done. We just need to take care of the base and do a couple of washes. Hold on, I forgot one color. We need to come back in and paint the rock that he's standing on. And this is a very important rock because we're thinning down that rattling grime to see exactly how pale of a gray we can get. And frankly, we can get a very, very pale gray. I like it. The rock's painted. Now we're gonna get to the base.
Do you smell what the rock is cooking?
It's delicious, and yes.
All right, my orc is looking really good. However, there's a couple of final things that we need to take care of, and that is primarily the base and then an overall wash and then one spot wash. So let's talk about the base first. For that, I'm going to be using Armageddon debris, or Armageddon dust, I believe, and we're going to be spreading that over the entire base pretty flat and just dabbing our texture tool on top of it to help add to a more grainy texture for this particular paint. Once that has had plenty of time to thoroughly dry, we're going to come back in and we're going to apply a specific Seraphim CPO wash to the entirety of the base. We're going to then jump back over to our orc, and before we attach him to the base, I need to take care of 2 washes on him as well. The spot wash is going to be of Riflin's Flesh Shade, which is just going to be going on the armor pieces from a Stormcast Eternal, because I want them to have a little bit of a more reddish tint to them, to give them a slightly different gold color tone than the yellow armor that I've put on my orc. Then, after that's dried, we're going to come back in with one final wash using Seraphim Sepia again, because I want to unify the base and the orc together. I'm also going to thin this a little bit more than what I did on the base to give it a little bit of a paler effect, and I love what this does over especially the armor. It just pops it amazingly. So let's get him attached to the base, tuft him, and then we'll take a look at the final model.
Jack, that is unbecoming. What do you have to say for yourself?
Do you have anything to say?
He has nothing.
I see.
Wah! My Ork Mega Knob Warboss. He's amazing. Let's talk about how much I love these new contrast colors, because frankly, I do. I think they are a fantastic addition to the existing Contrast 1.0 lineup that we have, and frankly, it adds a bunch of colors that we needed very desperately. We needed more greens, we needed new yellows, we needed more reds and oranges. I really wanted more pinks, purples, and that is what we got in this particular lineup. We also needed a lot more blues, and I know I didn't use too many of them on this particular orc.
You know, if you had actually taken my advice and given him like a rad, cool ice axe, then maybe you could have demonstrated more of them.
I see. Well, we do have an axe, but you see, I wanted him to match this one. This glorious one that I have
Why would
here.
you want it to match that one?
Because it is your doom! That's right. I wanted it to match the axe I carry because I just thought it would be really fun, and that was my inspiration, honestly. But back to those blue paints, I really do want to try out more of them, and I have a plan for that, so don't worry, it's just going to be coming a little bit later. There is a particular
icy troll that I've been wanting to paint up, or at least he's a troll and I've been wanting to make him ice themed. And I have something cool for the base for that too, so I gotta do a little bit of testing, but we have plans. I just, in general, really loved these colors. I'm going to be continuing to experiment with them, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow along as I continue to explore these colors. And before I head out, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for making it so content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we wouldn't be doing this, so thank you very, very much. I have been Angela, and have a wonderful hobby night. Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. Today, it's Pot Grot versus Stab Grot. That's right, I've gotten my hands on Dominion and I wanted to get started on painting up some of those Orc boys, and I wanted to go with the meme of the Pot Grot and the Stab Grot because they have been very, very popular, but I couldn't decide. So I decided to paint both of them, and my objective with this is to keep it pretty simple. I want to have this be a very beginner guide friendly. We're going to be working primarily, actually exclusively, with contrast paints, but before we begin, I wanted to go ahead and get the models primed up using a little bit of a zenithal prime to help myself out and giving myself a little bit of very easy depth. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and first apply some Mechanicus Gray, and then I'm going to do a heavy zenithal using Wraithbone. This is going to give me a great foundation. Now let's go ahead and get to the hobby table and get painting these adorable little grots. I am incredibly happy with how my Zenithal Prime turned out. The Mechanicus Gray went down very easily, and then the heavy Zenithal Prime using Wraithbone I think is going to really help me enhance the effects contrast paint naturally has when basically creating natural highlights and shadows on the model. This way I can essentially use the paint as GW originally sold it with one single coat, which I actually end up doing through this entire process, and it ends up being really cool and saves me a lot of time. So if you're working with contrast paint and you're wanting an easy way to enhance it, try Zenithal Prime. It's really going to improve your game. I really like to create a two-toned effect when I'm working with Xeno flesh tones, and actually most flesh tones, but in particular Xeno flesh tones. And for that, I'm going to do a combination of a contrast color and then a shade over top. And for greenskins, my foundation color is always Plaguebearer's Flesh. I really like the sort of yellow-green tone it has. It tends to work really well with the shades that I put over top to create a more green flesh tone while giving me some warmth underneath, and I really, really like that. So we're gonna make sure to get both of these little guys coated with some Plaguebearer's Flesh before we move on to a shade to give them a little bit more depth and finish off the flesh tone. For the little pot grot stirring up his concoction of mystical energies or whatever, we're going to go ahead and use some Bielton Green, which is my classic go-to color when I'm working with some orky flesh, because I really just like the apple green color tone that it acquires once it's put over top of the Plaguebearer's Flesh. It just is such a beautiful green tone. I absolutely love it. But when I was going through and painting him, I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know, I think I want to do something a little bit different for the stab grot. I don't want to just go with the same flesh tone. So instead what I decided to pull out was Athenian Camo Shade, which is a color that I used a little bit on my tank actually that I had painted up, the Lehman Russ. And I thought this might be a really nice way to get a softer, more subdued olive green skin tone on my orcs. And it worked perfectly. I absolutely love the way that this turns out, and I definitely think I'm going to be using it a lot more going forward on my orcs to sort of help differentiate them and add a little bit of variety into their basically army and color scheme mix-up. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this video. If you're new here and you want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. And if you've enjoyed this video specifically or hated it, let me know down in the comments and go ahead and hit the like or dislike button. But I also wanted to talk today about my Patreon, where if you want to see behind the scenes content, including photos and vlogs, as well as an opportunity to help contribute to a brand new series that will be happening on the channel sometime soon, where I am going to be building a brand new army. And my patrons are going to have an opportunity to help me choose which army, what colors to pick, and various other things to vote on. So if you're wanting to make sure to get in on that action, go ahead and check out the Patreon link down in the description below. And I believe voting for the new series will be coming up soon, possibly at the end of July. So if you're wanting to get in on the first of all of the polls and everything and really help me pick that army, make sure to go ahead and check out the Patreon. Thank you guys so much for watching. Now let's get back to the video. Now that their flesh is taken care of, I want to go ahead and start working on some of the leathers and cloth that they have on them. And I'm going to start using Mozrog Yellow on the loincloth on the pot grot, as well as the jacket that the stab grot is wearing. I wanted to start with something that was more recessed so that I wasn't having to worry about getting colors past other colors I've already painted. That way, if I have to do any cleanup, which hopefully we'll avoid because we have a Zenithal Prime, we want to try to avoid having to do too much cleanup. But if we do have to do any, it's not going to be hard to get to. Now, once this is done, I'm really happy with it. And I also chose to apply this color to both of the models, as opposed to what I'm going to be doing with some future colors, which will only be going on the pot grot. This adds a little bit of cohesion to the models, and I really like that when I'm building an army up, because I want them to be still unique. I want each model to sort of stand out, but I still want them to look like they run together, and this helps me tie them together. Originally, I had thought that maybe I was going to do the pot grot's jacket also in Mozrog Yellow, but I decided no. He needs a bit more color. He's mystical. He's going to be scavenging a bunch of these pieces of clothing and materials and like all the things that he's putting into his potions from a bunch of different areas. So he should have an eclectic variety of clothing. So I'm going to use some Blood Angels red on his shirt just to add a little bit of variety and make him stand out a little brighter. And I think this works really well, especially since he's the one that got Bielton green as the flesh shade. It just pops really well against that green, a little bit more so than I think it would have on the stab grot. For the rickety backpack that my pot grot is carrying all of his very heavy bags and pilfered supplies on, I decided to go with something dark, muted, but still had a little bit of a color tone to it. And for that, I used Wildwood. I really like the deep brown color tone of this paint. It works super well. I just use it all the time whenever I'm wanting just a sort of generic brown tone that doesn't stand out, but still is obviously brown. Wildwood is a go-to for me for anything like that. Before I move on to any of the other colors I'm going to be putting on the pot grot, I wanted to go ahead and pull out Basilicanum Gray and use this on all of the metal bits on both grots. This is going to include the cauldron, of course, that our pot grot is stirring up his potion in, all of the recessed metal bits on his backpack, which is why I'm doing the gray now, because I really did not want to fuss with doing any cleanup, just like kind of my explanation for the Mozrog Yellow. So we're going to get that. And we're going to make sure to put this on our stab grot. He has a lot of metal bits, so there's a lot that this color can go on. We're going to put it on his armor, I'm going to put it on his weapon, and I'm going to put it on that amazing shield, which I have some plans for to make it stand out a bit more later. But for now, I want this foundation color on there, and I want it to dry very thoroughly before I move on to anything else with it. So I'm glad I'm doing it at this step and not a little bit later in the process. Now, let's go ahead and move on to getting some of those bags colored up on our pot grot. While I was building this model, I started planning what I wanted to do for the colors on the pot grot's backpack, because there's a lot going on, and I knew I wanted him, as I had said before, to look like he had kind of like pilfered or pillaged some stuff and collected a bunch of materials from a bunch of different locations. So to help emphasize that, I'm going to be using a couple of different colors here to start working on the bags. The first one is going to be Agros Dune. I'm putting this on the clay pots because I thought that it's not terracotta specifically, but I have seen clay jugs that have that sort of yellowish golden hue to them before, and so I wanted to sort of capture that with the pots on him. For the bag, bags, I'm going to go ahead and use Dark Oath Flesh on a few of them, 2 specifically, I think. And then for the final one, I'm going to go ahead and use Pterodon turquoise, because I wanted to have another pop of a brighter color tone in there, but I didn't want it to be too warm hued. I didn't want to go with any reds or oranges or yellows because I've already used a lot of that on my pot grot, and I didn't want any greens because I didn't want to detract from his skin. So I thought a blue would be really good, and I really like the sort of deep teal color tone that Pterodon turquoise has. It's just really, really pretty in my opinion. I'm probably gonna try to use it a little bit more, but I just wanted to have that little flare of color on there. Next up, the pot grot has a few actual like organic and, well, I mean, I guess the chicken is dead, but some living things on him. And so I wanted to go with some more organic, brighter colors. And for the wild carrots and the chicken leg, I decided Griffhound Orange. Let's go with a bright orange, make them really stand out. Then for the carrot tops and then those weeds or like whatever grasses are sticking out of one of the bags on his back, I decided to pull out orc flesh. That's right, we put some orc flesh on an orc model, just not on his flesh. It's all good. I love that it's there. It's a really bright, beautiful green color tone. Would totally work for an orc. I don't know, it's a little too bright for me, which is weird to hear me say, but it is. So that's gonna go on there. And then I was looking at the chicken leg and I was like, okay, he's got like some tufts of feathers on there. I'm gonna pull out some apothecary white, dab that very gently just so it gets a little bit of that whitey blue hue to it. And it actually worked way better than I expected. And now it actually looks like a chicken leg and I absolutely love it. I think it's one of my favorite things on the model. I am almost done with all the base coats on my grots, but we have one key color that is missing, and that is snake bite leather. I'm gonna use this to wrap up everything else that is leather on both models to basically add some cohesion back in and tie them all together really nicely. Plus, I really just like the look of snake bite leather. It is such a good neutral leather tone that does not add too much additional like red or orange or yellow to a piece. So I thought it would work perfectly here. And I thought it would also really contrast well with the Nazdrag yellow on the stab grot, which is why I decided to go with it as the one that I basically put on both models as opposed to the Dark Oath Flesh, because I did debate that. I'm also going to be using this not only on all of the leather straps, as well as the bags and everything, but any stitching that might be on some of the other bags will get this, just to help them stand out a bit more. This little kind of detail work really can emphasize the model when you're looking at it up close. And I don't know, it's a really nice touch that's very easy to do, and it's something I've been doing a lot lately, and I've really been enjoying pushing my models a little further by doing this. I am so happy with how these guys are turning out. We have a few more colors to get to before we can get to the base and get them all finished up. So let's go ahead and get to those before we end this video. It's time now to come back to the shield, because I had mentioned that I wanted to do something to emphasize it a little bit more, because the Basilicanum Gray, while nice, is not doing a whole lot for me. And the stab grot, in comparison to the pot grot, is looking a little bit dull because the pot grot has so much more color on him. So to help fix that, I'm going to use Yondan Yellow on the shield, specifically the lower jaw portion of the shield. I'm going to do something different on the top to add a little bit more color to it, but I really, really like this effect. And then while I was painting this guy, I went, oh right, I need to paint the pot grot's eyes. This will add another way for me to tie in another color that is cohesive between the two of them. So the eyes on the pot grot are also going to get a bit of a Yondan Yellow. The other color for the shield is back to Blood Angel's Red. I decided to just go ahead and go with red because honestly, I just like that color on orcs. The stab grot specifically, I don't know, because he's out on the front line, he's actually out there stabbing people and everything like that, I figured he would maybe want a little bit more red coloring on him so he can move a little faster, get out of like under the feet of all of the bigger orcs around him, as well as his enemies, because he's real small and he could get squashed very easily. So this helps him move a lot faster in all of that heavy armor. And I really, really like the effect that this ends up having. I'm doing this on the shield as well as on some of the rivets on his actual armor on his body, because I thought, while the shield was looking really cool, his armor was starting to look a little dull in comparison, so this just added a nice little emphasis of color to tie them together. we're back to the pot grot because we need to take care of what he's actually stirring up in that big old cauldron. And for that, I decided to go with Magos Purple, simply because I wanted to have a little bit of purple on the model, and I figured this would work well, and I didn't want it to be too dark, which is why I didn't use Shyish Purple. I love the effect that this has. It definitely has that sort of mystical energy look to it, the Magos color. Possibly because it has the name Magos to it, and I just associate that with magic. But it really, really works for me. And then I remembered, oh right, I need to take care of the coals that are actually heating this cauldron up so that his potion can brew. So for that, I pulled out a bit of Black Templar and applied it to the coals beneath the cauldron. And with that, we can now move on to the base. And after getting both models put together so that they were fully assembled and look amazing, I get them mounted onto their bases, and then I'm gonna pull out some Sterling Mud and simply apply this pretty liberally over both bases. I'm keeping things pretty simple with these guys. I haven't done a just straight mud ground basing on any of my armies before, so I think for my orcs that might be the direction that I take them. It's simple, it goes down very quickly, and I really like the effect. Sterling Mud can get some really cool effects out of it, and you can do a lot of things with dry brushing later to emphasize it if you want to. So there's a lot of versatility there with this very simple texture paint. Now, with the bases all covered, let's go ahead and take a look at the final models. I love them. Look at my little grots. They are amazing. And I can now have them actually versus each other because they're both complete. And you can tell me in the comments which you prefer. Is it the pot grot? Is it the stab grot? I actually still cannot decide because I really like the things that I did on both models. And they're very similar, they are still very cohesive, but they also stand out really distinctly against each other, and I love that. The backpack on the pot grot was a blast to paint because I got to play with a bunch of different colors. I got to make it look like he eluded a bunch of different areas, whereas like the stab grot ended up getting a lot of like gray tones, but I got to play with some glazing, which I'm super excited for because I think it worked really well. And I'm planning some things for some future videos that really explore that even more because I just really, really like the effect that I got with this. And I've done it a couple times, but like the Basilicanum Gray as a base with some colors going over top of it, it just works super well, and I'm very happy with my results on these grots and everything. And I'm really pleased that my Zenithal Prime worked exactly how I wanted it to and provided me some additional natural highlights and shades for my contrast paints to work with, and it just created a very easy composition and way to get these guys done quickly, which is great because if I do want to start an orc army, which I'm really, really heavily considering, hence why I picked up Dominion and everything, I want to be able to get these guys painted up quickly because I know there's lots of them. It is still a horde army, and I've had my experience with horde armies and painting them, and contrast paint really, really helps get those done a lot faster. So I'm really excited for basically where all this is going. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video and watching me paint these guys up, maybe get some inspiration for your own Dominion box when you get it. And I hope you are looking forward to next week's video where I'll be painting up something from the Stormcast Eternal. I haven't fully decided yet, but I have some ideas and some thoughts on what I might even do with them. So I'm very hyped for that. If you guys want to check that out, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up or thumbs down depending on how you felt about it. Thank you guys so much, and I want to give an extra special thanks to all my patrons. I have been Angela. I will see you guys next time. You've been watching Hobby Night. Bye! Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. This week I have a special treat for you as I'll be painting up my first ever bust. An Orc Pirate Captain I was sent by Cromlech, and we're going to be using the slap chop method on this boy. Let's go ahead and get to it. Now before we begin, this doesn't quite fit exactly right, so... Excellent. All right, now we have a bust to talk about, specifically the one that Cromlech sent me that came in this delightful wooden box, which I just needed to point out and thought was really cute. I'm going to be keeping this forever. I don't know what I'm putting in it. probably dice. I'll probably be putting dice in this, or coins, because it's piratey. All right, but we need to talk about this bust that I'm going to be painting up, because one, I think it's stunning, but I want to talk a little bit about my priming method, because we're doing something a bit differently that maybe you've seen me do before, but we have a new name for it now, and it's called slap chop. Slap chop is an undercoating method where you start with a darker primer and then work your way up to a brighter primer, and then you put contrast paint or inks or whatever thin painting material you want to directly over top, and you're good to go. It looks amazing, and we're going to be using it today, although I am going to be doing a little bit of a variation on it, something that I think will just work for my purposes a little bit better. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to priming our bust. As I mentioned, I'm going to be using the slap chop method on this particular model, so let's go ahead and get started on that. First and foremost, I need to prime the model up using a gray primer, and for this, I'm just going with Uniform Gray from the Army Painter. After doing a small amount of touch-up on some areas that were in the putty as I was priming things, we can move on to the actual rest of this method, and that is first going to include some Nuln Oil. I want to put this into the recesses so that I get a little bit of a deeper shadow than what the gray is providing me, but I didn't want to go with a full black because I've used black with contrast paint before, and even though there's only going to be a very small amount of it left, it still washes out a lot more of the color than I am looking for. So I figured the Nuln Oil would be a great complement that would sort of fit that vibe. After the Nuln Oil has had plenty of time to dry, we're going to move on to the dry brushing part of this method. And the first color that I'm going to be using is Orruk Flesh. Now you can use whatever mid-tone color that you want to, but I went with Orruk Flesh because it's a green and I'm working on an orc. So I figured it would work really well. It's still lighter than my gray, but not too much lighter, and it works as a perfect mid-tone.
I am loving the way that this is turning out so far. Like, I actually just really like the way this by itself looks with the gray and the green. Obviously, we're going to add one more layer of dry brushing with a white on top of it all, but I just wanted to take some time to appreciate, honestly, the textures that they have going on this model. Cromlech did a great job. I love the details. Like, I was looking as I was bringing this first dry brush pass over, like, out, like how much is actually going on this like shoulder piece here. Epaulette, thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it. I love these buttons. There are some great little orky skeletons. Yeah, they're little orky faces that look kind of sort of skullish, but like
that's cute.
I love it. Of course, the cog's big and noticeable, so I saw that before, but again, really just loving all of the details. I even like the little rivets of different sizes on the shoulder here.
That's a nice detail.
Yeah, and then I actually really enjoy the little bit of texture work that's happening on this squig here. I did have to do a little bit of repair work originally on this tail. I'm going to go ahead and get to adding the white to this, and then after that, we can actually start applying our contrast colors.
Once we're done with this, and I've gone pretty heavy with the green, we're going to move on to our highlight color, which is going to be matte white. I'm going to go pretty heavy on this as well because I really want these highlights to shine through and stand out prominently against everything else we've already done. Once the white is done, we can actually start slapping on some color. Just look at how stunning even the slap chop prime job looks on this bust. It is insane and I love it, but we want to put some color on here. So let's start with some of the bigger sections first. We're going to start with Mantis Warrior Green on his flesh. I love this color tone. It's my go-to for orc flesh, and you can immediately see the effects of the slap chop priming method with this color. It stands out beautifully. You get a nice undertone of yellow from it. You still get some deep greens, and it's absolutely stunning. We're putting this on his belly, his face, and his hand, anywhere where you see some of that orky flesh. After that, we're going to get started on his Imperial looted jacket that he has. I decided that this time, instead of going with a Blood Angel's red Imperial looted jacket, we're going to go with something a bit blue. But I wanted it to look a little bit faded, like it wasn't a true navy blue color tone anymore. It had gotten sun bleached and maybe weather worn because he's out on the open seas. So I went with Croxagore scale. This is a lovely blue teal color tone that is absolutely stunning, and I love the combination of this color with his flesh immediately. It just looks beautiful. But the other big section that I want to take care of before we move on to some more of the detail work and the squig and his face and that kind of thing is Basilicanum Gray. I'm putting this only on his sword because I want it to stand out distinctly as the only stone element of the model. Anything else that's going to be a metallic gray we'll do something different for later. And with that, we have some of the bigger sections covered. Now let's work on the details. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in and let you know that I've recently started live streaming. So if you never want to miss those, or if you've been enjoying the content you're watching today, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for notifications. Now, let's go ahead and jump back to the video. The first of the details that I want to work on is his glorious face. I have debated for a while what I wanted to do specifically on his beard, and I came to the conclusion that it was going to be multi-toned, but not just two-toned. It's going to be tri-toned. The first color I need to put down is Black Templar. This is going to be the majority of the beard's color tone, and we're going to put this on everything with the exception of 4 distinct braids. One of those braids that we have not painted is going to be painted in Gryph-hound Orange. I debated between doing a Blackbeard theme or a Redbeard theme because those are classic pirate looks, and decided, you know what, we're gonna go with both and we're gonna make it a little bit Halloween by adding a third color in. So once we have the orange on that one braid, we're going to come back in with Soul Blight White, or Soul Blight Gray, I guess it's called, and put that on the remaining 3 unpainted braids. This gives him a true Halloween look. It also adds a little bit of dignity and regality to him because he's got that silver fox thing going for him. Figured he was a little bit of an older orc with that beard and it being so big and bushy because, you know, orcs don't grow their own hair. They scalp it off of other people or take it from squigs. So that's what we're going for, and I'm really loving the look of this. But before we move off of the face, I do want to take care of a few other details like those baubles in his beard, and for that I'm going to be using Iron Jaws Yellow. We'll be coming back to this color a couple of other points to add it variety to the piece and make it a little bit more cohesive, but for now, I'm really happy with where we're at. From a grizzled old face to an adorable squig face, we're going to be working on his squig parrot next, and for this, we're going with a classic squig color tone, which is red. I'm going with Blood Angels Red. I wanted something bright and sort of ketchup colored, and honestly, Blood Angels is the best one for that. But you'll notice on the back of him, he's got some feathers, because he's in fact this orc captain's parrot. And I want those feathers to look a little bit more organic, a little bit fluffier, and to do that, I'm gonna wet blend a couple of other tones in there. I'm going to start with Gryph-hound Orange and then wet blend into that some Iron Jaws Yellow to create a really vibrant, bold look for his tail feather and the feathers he's got on his back. I've taken care of some of the major sections on the model. Let's focus on some of the smaller details next. I want to start with some of the metallics, specifically the ones that I want to be gold, and this is going to focus on some of the details on his jacket, as well as the beak on his squig, and for that, I'm going to be sticking with Iron Jaws Yellow. I just really like the look of this particular color, and I have a different yellow I'm going to be using on the epaulette later, and I think it's going to stand out really brilliantly against this. So once I have the yellow down, we can move on to his other shoulder, which has a little bit more armor on it. And for that, we're going to stick with a bit more of a neutral color tone. We're going to go first with Gorgrunta Fur on the leathers. Then for the wood, we're going to switch over to Gargax Sewer, which is just a really nice brown wood tone with a terrible name. And then finally, we're going to Rattling Grime, which is going to be all the remaining metallics that we haven't already painted. I really like that I have 2 different gray tones to use with the contrast line now, because it means that I can differentiate my stone from my metallics super easily without having to put additional colors over top of them. And that just saves me a little bit of time, which is always very nice. After that, I want to move on to some of the organic details, and we're going to start with the mouths and wounds on my orc. We're going to stick with Vulpus Pink for this, and while I have been using Sigmund Burgundy recently, I wanted something that was a little bit brighter and a little bit more of a true pink color tone to help it stand out against all of the other vibrant color tones I have on this model. After that, I'm going to move on to Blood Angels Red, because there's a couple of details that I want to pull out on the orc himself that will help unify the squig and have him not stand out too brightly on his own. We're going to specifically do this on some of his rings and some of the details on his armor. And then the last thing that I need to take care of when it comes to the details is taking care of all the bones, skulls, and teeth that are all over this model. For that, I'm going to stick with Skeleton Horde because I wanted something that was a little bit warmer, and I didn't want to have to layer it quite as much as I have been doing with Mortarion Grime recently, because that is a very, very pale color tone. So Skeleton Horde it is. There aren't very many details left except for his hat and a couple of places on his jacket. So let's start with that Imperial looted jacket, because I want to use Nazdreg yellow on the epaulette and all of the fabric details on there, because I think it's a brilliant antique gold color tone, highly underrated, and I don't use it enough, but honestly, I think I'm going to, because the epaulette is genuinely my favorite thing about this model. But I don't want to just gush about that, because we have a couple other things to take care of. And next, we're going to work on his hat, because you might notice I haven't worked on that at all yet. The reason is because the Dark Oath flesh that I'm using as the leather tone on the hat is thin, takes a while to dry, and needed a couple of layers. So I did it in pieces, but after 2 layers of letting it just fully dry, it looks amazing. I'm very happy with it. It has a very worn leather look, and we can move on to the last details. We're going to use Basilicanum Gray for the sword that's sticking out of his hat, because I wanted to have it be stone just like the weapon he was actually using. From there, we're going to move on to Reikland's Flesh Shade, because I wanted to put that into all of the Iron Jaws yellow pieces that I painted, knocking their color tone back a little bit and making them be a bit more gold so they match what I've got going on the epaulette. Then we have the feathers to take care of. And I imagine what happened is he looted this Imperial jacket, then fought some Tzeentchian demons and went, oh my god, the feathers on those Tzeentchian demons match my jacket. I need them for my hat. So he plucked one of the blue ones from the demon and stuck it in his hat. But he wasn't satisfied with that, and he saw some pink feathers on that demon as well, and so he plucked one of those as well, and now he has 2 glorious blue and pink feathers in his pirate hat. And with that, I am so pleased with how this model's turned out. Let's go ahead and talk about it. And here he is, my first ever painted bust, and frankly, I am so very pleased with him. I need to figure out exactly how I'm going to mount him, because I don't have anything to really put him on quite yet, but that doesn't matter, because the process and just painting this thing was so much fun. The slap chop method worked brilliantly as I expected, and it really enhanced a lot of the fine details that Cromlech put into their sculpt, which I really appreciate it, because it just makes the model look so much cooler, and I'm very, very happy with how he turned out. I was really concerned with actually approaching this particular piece, because I've never worked on a bust before. It's always felt a little intimidating, and I often see people approach it in a non-metallic metals sort of way, and I'm really not interested in that myself, so I wanted a different method to approach it with and still get some really stunning highlights, shadows, and midtones. And I think the slap chop method was the perfect answer, and I'm really glad that this is becoming a vogue term and just thing that people are doing in the hobby, because frankly, I think it looks stunning. It's been done for ages in the art field, and seeing it applied to sculpture, like miniatures, just is brilliant. Plus, it helps you get things done very, very quickly. While this bust did take me a couple of days to complete, that was mostly due to scale and not because of the complexity of the design or the colors that I was using.
It took you about 10 hours.
Yeah, I think it was 10 hours. I guess I did it over 2 days, but it was really 10 hours of painting, which is not a whole lot of time, really think about it. And I'm so pleased with the results. Thank you to Cromlech for sending me the bust as just something for me to paint, because I've never done this before, and it was just a super fun opportunity. So thank you very, very much. And before I head out, I do want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for making it so content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we just wouldn't be doing this, so thank you. I've been Angela, and I hope you have a wonderful hobby night.